Alright, so just harassed by Sergeant Harrell. See, this is the thing, is that I need to turn these pieces of shit in. Anytime that I have to talk to them alone, it's not a good time for me. Anytime that they come and harass me is not a good time for me. No matter what their goddamn excuse. Of course, Sergeant Harrell wanted to pull up right over there in front of the Townsend Hall is what it's called. It's the Senior Citizen Center. Wanted to say somebody called in. He wanted to know if I was alright. Well, I was alright until he talked to me. See, that's the thing. Still breathing, not dead yet. It's never okay for any of these officers to talk to me alone. It's never okay. After the things that they've done, the things they've pulled, it is not safe for me to have to talk to them alone for any reason, any excuse whatsoever. If I am alone, it's not okay. The things that the police do to homeless men are worse than rape. I know, because I have been. I didn't grow up in Candyland. Alright? I didn't grow up under a rock or in a bubble. I didn't grow up with manservants and maidservants doing my bidding. I wasn't born with a crown on my head to stick up my ass. The world that I live in, no matter how you want to view me, no matter how you want to view autism or Asperger's, the fact is I grew up in a household with druggies, drug addicts, and drugs, of course. So when I talk about drugs, it's not some autistic retard talking about something he saw on fucking TV. These are real life experiences. The bodies out here are definitely real people, or at least they were. Now for the cops, whether they're talking nicely to me or not now, makes no difference because of the way that they have treated me repeatedly. If you're going to call it in with me. Because any other way you do it, you're putting me and my life at risk. You're putting my friends' lives at risk. You are putting my goddamn evidence at risk. Knock your shit off. It is literally never okay to make me talk to the police alone. Ever. Under any circumstances. Now, as far as whether or not I'm okay, well, let me say it like this. I'm trying to look at the bright side. I drove down to the other end of town and my car was running real rough. And I got back and I parked in the spot that I was in before. Because I'm kind of freaked out about how fucked up my vehicle is running. One of these homeless people whose names I don't know comes up and tells me he saw somebody pouring something in my gas tank. I don't know what the fuck anybody would have put in there. Maybe it was sugar. The guy was in a hurry though, so of course he doesn't give me a description. It's just a story. It's just oh well, someone did this to you. Well, thank you for the story, but I could really use a description. Now I did look. It doesn't look like there's any sort of sugar spilled, but it's dark. As far as Sergeant Harrell talking to me, that's not okay. If you're concerned for me, turn that concern with me. What I need is someone to be there and present when I have to talk to cops, because they don't talk to us like we're fucking people. That's the goddamn problem. If they do talk nice to us, it's fucking condescending, and they will fucking lie through their goddamn teeth at us every fucking time. Not only that, I'm trying to turn in literally all of these fucking cops. You really think that's a comfortable thing for me to do? Look at how easy it is for police officers to go back and forth between the he's mentally ill and he's not mentally ill thing. Like Officer Loftman here. Sergeant Harrell's a world-class piece of shit. He can kiss my ass. His old boss, Ray Rao, is also a fucking world-class piece of shit. When I'm harmed, these fucking pieces of shit want to make it impossible for me to turn in a crime. I guarantee you, all this shit that they want to pretend to me is not illegal, if I do it, they'll come after me for it. Guaranteed. If I even pretend like I might. Hell, if I make a video saying that I'm not willing to do this shit, they'll even come after me. How do I know that? Because I know police tactics. I've been turning in bad cops for years. Bad cops and public officials. I spoke up about Polly Olson, Sarah Nelson. Now, of course, Sarah Nelson, she could have done her job. Her name is all over my paperwork. What is she? She's a sex offender, that's right. A sex offender. Guess who's not a sex offender? Me. Why am I not a sex offender? Well, it could have something to do with the fact that I'm pretty goddamn grossed out by the thought of sex. But that's not it. It's because I am not a piece of shit like that. Don't get me wrong, I can be a piece of shit. Oh yeah, we're all capable. Under the right circumstances, everybody is capable of being an asshole. The people who claim that their families were threatened, how do I know that they're full of shit? Number one, they never, ever made any attempt to show any evidence of any such thing. Number two, they literally never came forward to help turn this in. The fact that people were threatening to kill those who offered to help me and their families is something that needed to be taken into account from day one. Now, why did I believe these people who told me that their families, their own children, that their lives were being threatened? Why did I believe them? Because I dealt with that for a whole year before Natalie was killed. You know how to push a male victim to suicide? Talk over him. Tell him what to do, what to think, and what to feel as he came to you for advice. You know what? If that's the only help that you have to offer, you were never a friend. Because the first thing you should do is listen to understand, not listen to respond. I don't need you to solve my problems. That's not what I fucking need. I need the basics of humanity. If I am harmed, as a homeless and disabled man, I have to be afraid of the police. And you can see time and again how police treated me when I'm alone. Maybe that person who told me about the stuff in my gas tank was the one who called in something. Maybe it's somebody who took a look at my hand that called in something. But that's not what Sergeant Harrell said. No, what is it that he said? Asked if I was doing all right, and said somebody called me in, and that sounds innocent enough, but I am alone, and I am scared shitless of them, and I am trying to turn them in. I am afraid of them. It is not okay for them to come and approach me alone. I'm afraid of them for a reason. You know what's inappropriate about these police officers sending us to mental health? Is the people at mental health aren't going to look at the goddamn evidence either. They're going to ignore their job as mandated reporters and just try to do the stuff that makes them money. A lot of money. And they don't make that money if they help you the way that you need. Because if you help somebody the way that they need, they don't need to come back to you for fucking help. If you do your job as a mandated reporter, they don't have to come back to you month after month after month for therapy. Because they're still being abused. I pay attention to the laws. I'm allowed to record audio literally anywhere, except in a courtroom. I can audio record anywhere in a courthouse, except in the courtroom. And if I have reason to believe that there's crime committed against me in a courtroom, I can record then too. The court date between myself and Leslie Snell, one of my predators, one of the people who was heavily involved in the threat against my life. Her family was involved in that. Her own husband and her brother-in-law, as well as Chris Kurth. That was in Chapel, Nebraska. Then there's the bullshit with Don Shelley in Hood River. You can also hear the recordings from the Dalles, Oregon. I tried telling y'all about that church there. Now, who is it that made it that bad? The police, social services, Department of Health and Human Services, even Child Protective Services. They all send us to that place. They send all homeless people to that church. And they refuse to do anything about the crimes committed at that church. The police are intentionally creating these issues nationwide. They're throwing fucking tantrums at the expense of human beings. You want to believe that people wouldn't do this? Oh, are you fucking shitting me? People wouldn't be vengeful if they don't get what they want? If you take away their last available victims, the homeless are the only people who have zero protections at all. Zero protection from police violence. Zero protection from murder. Zero protection from social media, from actual media. Zero protection under law. We are the most vulnerable and the most victimized, and you call all of us mentally ill, but you don't give us the rights of a quote-unquote mentally ill person. If a person is mentally ill and they tell you that they're being abused, the accusation itself is enough to begin an investigation. That means collecting evidence in these pieces of shit who've done everything they can not to. Don't do anything for me. Because the assumption that doing it for me is exactly the bullshit that allows them to get away with the pulling of the wool over your eyes. If we call them together and we record it together, then we have witnesses. I don't have to beg you to listen to hundreds upon hundreds of recorded calls because you were on the call with me. I don't have to just take your word for it and get treated like shit when I speak up about the fact that you never came forward in court. If you're going to tell me these things happened, you're going to admit to me that these things happened, but you're literally never going to try to speak up in court or to the media or anywhere else. You're just going to throw it in my face is what you're doing. Yeah, I'm telling the truth. And you'll admit to me that I'm telling the truth, that I'm not fucking crazy. But you won't tell the fucking public that's hurting me? You won't tell the fucking courts? You are a fucking dirty piece of shit. Don't help me like that. If you're gonna help me like that, the least you can do is put a bullet through my head. I am an at-risk and disabled adult who's trying to turn these cops in. Calling the cops and having them come talk to me solo is asking for me to be harmed. And you want to stop for one moment and consider that when you are fucking railroaded for being fucking homeless, that goes on your permanent goddamn record, you fucking pieces of shit! You know the difference between somebody getting help when they're abused or them going to a goddamn mental institution? You fucking useless pieces of shit! It's whether or not you give a fuck enough to turn it in with the victim right away. Literally anything else is you showing that you're a lying piece of shit who does not give a fuck. And those of you playing Christian, maybe you should look up what repenting really is. I'm not talking about the evangelical fucking tarded fucking version, where you can be the most wicked person on the planet and commit every sin that you want. And then right before you die, you pretend like you give a shit. Like you love Jesus and you're going to let him into your heart. No. If you was going to let Jesus into your heart, you'd have done it already. You don't believe in the Jesus, you're afraid of going to the hell. The hell that you learned about, right? For some of you, it's a lake of fire. For some of you, it's torture and eternal damnation. For some of you, it's riding a pineapple on to end up. Yeah, I pay attention to the world around me, and I pay attention to the speech of the people around me. I pay attention to the words that they say and why they say them. When I tell you something, there's a fucking reason I told you. And when you literally talk over everything that I say and dismiss everything that I say, you are showing 100% without any shadow of a doubt that you never gave a fuck. You can't follow those simple instructions. I try to tell you the legal route, because there is a legal route. And the police will lie to you and change the rules repeatedly. You have to be smart enough to know what the fuck is going on. This is why it's important not to ever trust a woman as a male who needs help, because no woman is going to register in her mind the harm that she causes by pretending to give a shit and believing that talking is fucking useful. No, talking at the victim is not fucking useful. See, here's the difference between men and women. Men are taught to give useful help. You need muscles, right? You need help moving your stuff. You're going to get a hold of a man, aren't you? When you want someone threatened or intimidated, you're going to go have a man do it, aren't you? Making me go to the cops for literally anything whatsoever by myself, that you don't give two shits about me. It shows that you don't care about my safety. If you're going to make me go to officers that you know I'm trying to turn in, you're not a good fucking person. If you're going to give them an excuse to harass me alone, you're not a good fucking person. You're not trying to help me. You're trying to force me into a situation that I'll commit suicide in. And don't pretend that's not what you're doing. And the I'm sorry's don't fucking help. I'm sorry doesn't fucking help. There's a lot of people that are real sorry they crossed me. And rightly so. Let me tell you about a woman who on Facebook goes by Lilithu Sophia Krishnadas. I know her as Miss Peaches. Her real name is Kayla Trujillo. At the very beginning, when all this shit started, Kayla Trujillo was involved all the way back in 2016, over a year before Natalie got her brains blown out. Over a year. Imagine that. Well, Miss Peaches, she wasn't a very good person. She pretended to be my friend, and like many people, for somebody like me, somebody who's different, yeah, I don't get the best choices of friends. I don't get rich friends. I don't get good-looking friends, unless, of course, they happen to be homeless or drug addicts or drug dealers. People who can try to play off your reputation, like, hey man, yeah, sure I'm a drug dealer, but look, I'm friends with Sean, I can't be that bad. Y'all got no idea what my reputation used to be in Boulder, Colorado before I hurt my back. I was everybody's fucking go-to for every goddamn thing. I was able-bodied and I was willing. I was willing to help instead of making excuses. Now, there's a lot of people who will offer to help right away that don't know anything about what's going on. And as much as you may want that help and need that help, is it going to be help if they're not willing to listen to what's going on? Or if the idea for them of you is talking you out of turning it in? or telling you to be patient. That is the number one reason why victims end up being victimized long term. When we go to our friends and family for help because we're being abused, the most important thing to do is to turn it in right away. And when you tell us to be patient, you're letting us know outright that you don't give a fuck. When you tell us that you'll help us, but you leave it open-ended, you're letting us know outright that you're full of shit. And women, you need to pay attention to women especially who do this. Because they are taught and trained from birth how to manipulate men. Because men are taught and trained from birth that our life is to be lived in service of women and children. Men are born into this world with responsibilities. We are born with expectations of stoicism, generosity, fearlessness. We're not supposed to show any emotion until a woman tells us to, though, right? Yeah, Will Smith can hold his tongue, and he can keep his nasty cockbeaters to himself, but one look from Jada is enough for him to turn into a little bitch, to show what a punk-ass little simp he is. It is never okay to make a homeless, disabled man speak to the police alone. Homeless, disabled man. 96% of those killed by police last year, almost 97%, were men. Men commit suicide at 5 times the rate of women starting at the age of 15. And in the last 5 years, suicide by men in specific has compounded itself 15 times. Compounded. That's a lot of men offing themselves. Women decide our worth. And if we don't have a woman, then it's okay to harm us repeatedly. If there's no woman in our lives, that makes it okay to incessantly hound us and treat us like we're horrible people. We're alone, so we must be rapists. We're alone, so we must want to harm you and your children, huh? After the bullshit that Harrell and that little bitch boyfriend of his, Lothman, there ain't no respect between myself and the police, and they fucking know it. You know what? After you rape somebody, talking nice to them doesn't make any fucking difference. You still fucking raped them. And what the cops did here is worse than rape. What the cops do to homeless, disabled men nationwide is worse than rape, and I've recorded it nationwide. They won't help us to move somewhere else once we realize that there ain't nothing there for us except victimization. They won't help us to get somewhere else. You know what they will do? They'll ignore us and allow crime after crime after crime to happen to us until we have a mental breakdown. And then they'll lock us up for having a mental breakdown. They'll give us a case number, and then they'll put us on a bus to another state. And then they'll try to hold us in contempt when we can't show up to court. Well, you know what? You could have invested that money to help us get somewhere else before But no, police make too much money. It's a racket, and all of you fucking know it. All of you parents who are bitching right now about the court system with parents, it's not just the court system for parents. But you're selfish pieces of shit. You only care about yourselves. There's a lot of homeless parents. There's a lot of homeless children. There's also a lot of drug addicts in houses who victimize the shit out of us. There's also a lot of officers like Lothman and Harrell who did incredibly wrong things. And they knew what they were doing is wrong. But there was nobody there to stop them. There was nobody there other than myself to say, hey, this is wrong. It's not because I'm a horrible person that these things happened. It's because you're a horrible person. What kind of a person do you have to be to look the other way? You say turn the other cheek, but you don't turn the other cheek when it happens to you, do you? No, you change the rules. A lot of people wanted to tell me that having my name slandered on the internet was no big thing and I just needed to ignore it. It wasn't just slandered on the internet. I was harmed for a whole year before Natalie died. None of these people wanted to hear that, though. No, they wanted to pretend like they didn't know nothing. Like I'd never done nothing good for anybody. I gotta deal with a lot of fucking crazy people. The majority of the people that talk to me in the average day are schizophrenic. That's no joke. The people that I go and talk to, that's a different story. A lot of the people at Safeway, I go and I talk to them because out here on the streets, I got a bunch of crazy people that come up and talk to me. I'm not trying to say that as an insult. I'm saying it because these people are volatile. Some of them are in houses, some of them ain't. Most of them are on drugs. It's never okay to make me talk to the cops alone. It's never okay to make me go to a hospital alone. It's never okay to make any homeless and disabled man do any such thing. Without you there to protect their rights, they will get talked over. I got railroaded in court because not one of my so-called friends, not one of my so-called loved ones ever came forward to anyone but me, and then they get angry when I speak up and they find out that I spoke up. And they call me a liar and claim I slandered them. And then I post up the recording. Or I show them that I already posted up the recording with them that shows that I told the truth. How dare you tell me something and then claim that I slandered you? If you tell me you're not able to help me right now because you have to go to your grandma's funeral, then later on you want to tell me it was your aunt's funeral and I slandered your name, I'll post up the truth. You get pissed off because it's your personal business? Well, you know what? It was your personal business. Sort of, but it was also your excuse for not keeping your word. How long ago did your grandma die? And when did you try keeping your word? Oh, yeah, to this day, you've never tried keeping your word. That was Rachel Klang. And her mom, and her sister, and her dad. There's some of the people that were in those groups when Natalie died. People that I know in real life, people who were going to help me, promised that they would help me, and then no matter what, there was always some excuse why they couldn't. Why they couldn't call the cops with me and help me to turn in the evidence. Something I'd been trying to do for over a year before Natalie was killed. To show the abuse that I was going through. Not one person then or since has taken that seriously. When, this time, did Shannon Alvarado ever once, ever try to turn in the crimes committed against me by Kara Johnson Miles? She literally never made an effort. That's the one argument through all of this with Shannon Alvarado. No matter what, she's not going to try. No matter what, Shannon Alvarado will never try keeping her goddamn word. None of these women did. Don't tell me this shit if it's not true. And if you send me evidence of it and you force me to turn it in alone, I've explained to you how I'll be treated if I turn it in alone. You're the one who found the evidence. You need to help turn it in. What did Shannon Alvarado do instead? She took advantage of me. That's not okay. That's never okay. Like I said, making me go to the police alone is horrible. It's the worst thing that you can do to a homeless man. Other than tell one of the three lies. And when it's a homeless man, everyone wants to believe it, don't they? Everyone wants somebody they can take their abuse out on. When your daddy rapes you, but you need the roof over your head, you don't want your mom ending up homeless, you don't want your sister ending up in mental institutions or in foster care. You know, I grew up with the worst of the worst, and I can tell you something about the worst of the worst kids out there. They endured the worst of the worst. Them being horrible children isn't a reflection of them being horrible people. It's a reflection of them living through hell. You pieces of shit. I lived through hell. Natalie lived through hell. Alicia lived through hell. Why is Alicia such a fucking selfish goddamn cunt? It's a survival skill. Nobody in Natalie or Alicia's life will ever love them the way that I do. Nobody in Maddie Bo's life will ever love her the way that I do. Nobody in my older brother's life will ever love him the way that I do, and nobody in my little sister's life will ever love her the way that I do. All of you have ulterior motives, every one of you. I'm the only one who's clear about it. You know, and there's stuff that I don't tell you. It's not because I'm not trying to be completely honest. It's that you keep interrupting, making it so I have a very short amount of time to get a lot of information out there. And the longer you procrastinate, the more information there is to impart. Because the longer you procrastinate, the longer I have to endure this abuse, and the more abuse I'll have to endure. The more frequently I will be assaulted by people. And by never once helping me to turn any of them in, you're showing that you never cared. By making me talk to the police alone, you're showing that you aren't listening, that you don't try to understand, and that you don't care to understand. You're just going to grossly reinterpret everything to meet whatever your laziness happens to be at the moment. Well, you don't want to, you'll just pass it on to the cops. And maybe somebody was trying to turn in the situation with me having a cup of gasoline thrown on me. Well, that's not going to work. It's either a Chevy Silverado or a Chevy Colorado. I didn't get a good look at the driver or the passenger. It was definitely the passenger that threw the fucking cup of gasoline on me. And I'm sorry I keep saying a Pepsi cup. It was actually a Starbucks cup. Didn't mean to mislead you. You're gonna call up the cops and say that you're worried about me. What are you worried about? You're not worried about the right fucking things, obviously. I'm afraid of the police for a reason. You try to understand that? No. No, you don't. A lot of people have used wellness checks to have me harmed for trying to turn them in. Cops in jail use that all the time. Same thing in the prisons. You tell on them, they'll taunt you, pick on you, bully you, and all the guards will get on it. They even have pedophiles on hand that they can use to antagonize you. They'll put one in a cell right next to you. One that likes to brag, like Wesley Reiner bragging about raping his little brother in front of a 9-year-old in a foster home. When you tell on the cops, they have guards there whose job is specifically to play stupid, like Officer Ware. She was Wesley Reiner's handler. What did she do? She'd give Wesley Reiner special privileges if he'd antagonize people that the guards didn't like. Just so you know, I was not in there as a convict because I wasn't convicted of anything. Matter of fact, they had to drop all charges. Without a friend or family member, no lawyer is going to pick it up because all these people have to do is say mentally ill and it all goes away. Their crimes never happened. No one will ever try requisitioning the evidence. And it comes down to you not giving a shit. Because without you giving a shit, all these pieces of shit get to pretend like I just didn't try. It's gross. For Sergeant Harrell to come talk to me after the bullshit that he and his department have pulled is inappropriate to say the least. Any crime committed against me has to go through the state police at this point. There is no safe way for me to turn in any crime committed against me to the police in this county. And you get to hear, well, over a dozen of the mandated reporters here telling me that they'll try to talk to their friend in the police department or their friend in APS. They're going to talk to their friend. Really? That's called table talk. What you should be doing is calling them right away, having them show up and be there with the victim for the victim's safety. Especially if it's a male homeless person. What the hell were you thinking? I got my coffee. I also got a car that's pointing its lights at me. Quite an annoyance. I don't like Sergeant Harrell for a reason. If you care about me, turn it in with me. Allow me a safe place to sit down and write out a report where I don't have to worry about being fucking victimized. And don't blow off how fucked up this is.